Okay, so for our last Passover recipe, we're going to be making candied matzah. It's so good, and it's a little dangerous how good it is. So just be careful if you watch this video and you learn how to make it. You're in danger of eating a lot of candied matzah. So what we're going to do is we're going to do, we're going to start with lining your baking sheet. So you can use some tinfoil or parchment paper, something to just make it easier for you to clean up all of the candy. So after you do that, then you're going to spread over the matzah so that it evenly, you have one layer of matzah covering the entire baking sheet. The recipe I'm going to give you with this is for one sheet, but I'm going to be making two, so I'm just doubling the recipe. So you'd start with equal parts butter to sugar in your pan. And you put on like a medium heat. You're gonna need to stir a lot. You don't want it to burn. And we're going to basically just melt this butter. I have 4 sticks of butter because I'm doubling the recipe. If you just do one, it'll just be 2 sticks of butter. So I have 4 sticks of butter in here, and I'm gonna do 2 cups of sugar. So that's the same amount of butter to sugar. I have 2 cups of butter, and I'm doing 2 cups of sugar. You can use white sugar or you can use brown sugar. I've seen recipes with both. This is just the way my mom taught me how to make candy, so I use her recipe since I am more comfortable with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to let the sugar and the butter mix together and heat up. So you're going to want to stir a lot because you do not want it to burn. So this part takes a little bit of time that you got to sit and let the butter melt and start to caramelize. So it's going to take a second for us to do this. So I'm going to hopefully have a couple cuts in this video so that you don't have to watch me the whole time. But I'm going to let this just kind of, you can kind of see what it looks like so far. It's really light in color and the butter's still not even melted. So the color is going to change and it's going to start to get darker. So that's what we're looking for. I'm going to cut right now. We'll wait. Okay, so I've been stirring and melting my butter over the stove for a few minutes now. You can see all the butter is melted and it's starting to get really hot in there. So this is when we want to make sure I continue to stir and just let it start to change color and turn into candy. So the thing I like about this recipe is that we actually finish this in the oven. So it gives you a little bit of room. You don't have to get the candy exactly perfect because the oven kind of finishes it off for you. Because getting candy just right is a little bit hard. You have to really know what the color or have a candy thermometer to know when it's going to actually turn to candy. But you can see right now, hopefully you can see, it's like bubbling up. It's getting kind of thick and frothy, and it's going to start to change colors now. It's going to start turning a little bit more yellow, and then I'll start to get some golden color. So I'm going to let it kind of, now that it's sort of boiling, I'm going to let it boil like this for about 3 to 4 minutes. We want to let it really start to turn to candy. So that's what I'm going to do with this. I'm going to let it continue to cook. I wanted to show you that this recipe, we're going to put some pecans on the top at the end. So I just chopped up some raw pecans and I put them in the oven just to toast them a little bit. So that's it. So what we'll do is I'm going to keep cooking this guy on the stove for a couple more minutes until it starts to turn to more of a golden color. Then I'm going to pour it over my matzah and I'm going to stick it in the oven. So you want to preheat your oven to 350 degrees. And after we pour our candy on top of the matzah, I'm going to put it in the oven for about 8 to 10 minutes. It's going to get really bubbly on the top. And that will basically finish off the cooking for the candy. And then I'll show you, we're going to top it with some chocolate chips and some salt and our pecans. And it's going to be really good. So hopefully you can kind of still see what's going on. It's getting really bubbly. It's kind of like foamy. It's thickening, which is really good, and it's just really bubbling up right now. So it's turning into candy. It's doing exactly what we want to do. And you really do want to keep stirring, because if you stop stirring, what happens is the butter and the sugar will separate. If this happens, just start stirring really quickly to get it incorporated, but you really want to avoid the butter and the sugar separating as much as possible. So that's why we want to stir continuously to make sure that it stays together. But if that does happen, don't worry, don't panic, just stir really fast and try to get it incorporated back together. So we're almost done. It's starting to change color. I want you guys to see this so that you'll know what to look for. And some recipes, I mean, you don't even have to do it in the oven. If you know exactly the temperature you need for candy, you can do it all on the stove. It's just cooking a little bit longer on the stove. But I think this is this way is a little bit easier. And the times I've done it, the candy always turns out really good, where I've done it on just the stove. And sometimes if you don't do it just right, the candy's like too chewy or it's overcooked. So this gives us a little bit of room for air. The oven's gonna take care of it for us. All right, so it's getting nice and thick. I just want it to get a little bit darker, but you probably could. Do it now and it'd be fine. But I just want to get it a little bit darker in color so that it's really good to go. And this is such a fun Passover food. Oh man, it's so good. It's very dangerous how good it is. And you can do all different kinds of toppings. You can do any kind of nuts you like. You don't have to do nuts. You can do dark chocolate, which would be really good. I'm just going to use regular semi-sweet chocolate chips, but dark chocolate would probably be really good. And top it pretty much with anything that you want. So it's nice and thick. It's looking really good. I'm excited. So hopefully you can kind of see it's super thick and kind of bubbly. I can smell it now too. It's starting to have that caramel kind of cooked sugar smell to it, which is really good. Okay, so now I'm ready for the next step. So we are going to pour our mixture over our matzah. I particularly like it kind of thin. I don't want it to be too thick, but you can do it any way you like. Actually, I'm gonna probably. So it does, if you have a helper, that's always nice. But if not, just be careful, because the pan is really hot and the candy is very, very hot. So be very careful with this mixture. So I'm just gonna pour it over my matzah. I'm gonna just do one right now. I think it'll be easier, and keep this guy cooking over the stove. And I'll do the other one after I put this one in the oven. Okay, so I just put about half of the mixture in, depending on how much you're making. I'll just stick this over here so that you can see what I'm doing. And now I'm going to you could use a spatula. This is just like a wooden spoon. I'm kind of just thinly spreading it on top of the matzah so that it covers the matzah. I want it to have a nice even coat covering it. So, and if you need to, to put a little bit more on, I'm probably going to put a little bit more on this pan so that we have a little bit more going on. There we go. All right. I want to save the rest for this last batch over here. Okay, so I'm spreading it on the matzah, and then I'm going to throw it into my oven, which is set for 350 degrees, and I'm going to leave it in there for 8 to 10 minutes. I'm going to peek on it, and once it looks really caramelized and it's bubbling all over, then I know it's ready to come out. So that will be the next step. We'll take it out. Okay, so my matzah has been in the oven for about 9 minutes and it's ready. So I'm gonna pull it out, and I would recommend, I'm not gonna do it for the video, but I would recommend you let it sit for just like 3 minutes, because it's really, really hot right now and it doesn't really need to be that hot to melt the chocolate. But I'm gonna just do it now since we're doing the camera together. So you're gonna want about an entire bag of chocolate chips. and I'm gonna pour it all over. I want it coating everything. And I'm gonna let the chocolate chips sit on here for a little bit so that they get melted. So I need a little bit more chocolate chips. So yeah, so we'll leave these chocolate chips on here for just a little bit so that they can get nice and melty, which won't take very long because it's very hot. Okay, so my chocolate has had a couple minutes to get really hot and get melty. So now I'm just going to spread it on so that it makes a nice even coating all over. So that we have a nice, nice good coating of chocolate. It doesn't have to be like perfectly even either. I just try to spread it out and try to cover as much of it as I can. So now, yep, I got a nice thick coating of chocolate covering all my matzah. It's gonna be so good. So chocolate's on. Last thing that I need to do now is my sea salt and my pecans, and that's it. After you have everything on, we're gonna just, you can put it in the fridge and let it chill for about 45 minutes to an hour, and then you can just break it into some nice big pieces. So here's my pecans. I'm gonna sprinkle it all over. We're gonna finish it with some salt. Any kind of finishing salt will do. You can do sea salt, you can do kosher salt. It's nice to have a little bit thicker chunks of salt because you'll be able to taste it a little bit more. And the salt does taste really good on here, so I definitely recommend the salt. All right, and that's it. Got my salt on, got my chocolate, got my pecans. The pan is still really hot, so I'm not gonna touch it. But once it cools down enough that it's not really hot, I'll throw it into the refrigerator and let it chill. And then at that point, after it's chilled, you can just break them into big chunks and enjoy. It's really good. Let me know how it turned out. I would love to see pictures if you want to post any pictures of the recipe, or if you just want to tell me if you tried it and it turned out. I hope that you do try it and enjoy it this Passover. And those are all my cooking videos for Passover. I hope that you all enjoy them and learn something new, and wishing you all a very happy, healthy, safe Passover.